Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. The first meeting tonight is going to be the approval of the agenda for the budget 11, code 11 at risk. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those, do we have anybody on Zoom? No? Okay. All those opposed, please say aye. Motion carried. So old and new businesses then is to approve the budget, code 11 at risk.
Just the information wise, when we approve a budget that's published in the paper, then that gives us the authority to spend that amount of money. If we go over that amount, which we can't legally do, then we have to republish a budget to be able to do so and still stay within the limitations. The reason that we didn't and had to republish this budget is when we had this into the paper and for the publication, we didn't have the teacher's salary entered in. And so the new teacher, the salary was higher than that. We then moved it to different areas within the budget that we felt we could. And then we're contacted and said, hey, look, it's got to come from at risk for the PK as far as the grant teacher for that portion. So that's why we have to go through that formal process. So that was printed in the paper, and then if anyone has anything that they would like to say about that, then they have opportunity to speak to it as well. And the same with the budget hearing that we have in August. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve? Okay.
I'll second.
Kelly moved and Jim seconded. All those opposed, please say aye. Motion carried. Okay. Now is there a motion to adjourn? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Meeting is adjourned. Okay. Now I will call to order our regularly scheduled board meeting. There are a couple of additions to the agenda under personnel. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 additions. Lance Fuller as the junior high assistant football coach, Mitchell Wurzburger as the high school assistant football coach, Jordan Dunn as the high school head cheer coach, and Miriam Barton as assistant head high school cheer coach. Motion to approve additions to the agenda. Kelly? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those opposed, say aye. Motion carried. Moving on then to reports. Principals are on summer break. So Mr. Knightley, do you have any additions to your Josh? Do you have any additions to your?
I don't.
It's okay. And Mr. West is not here. Okay. So next then, moving on to patrons communications. Amanda, you'll be up. Just a quick note about patron communications within a board meeting, at least our board meetings. Can't exceed 5 minutes. The discussions are about the policy at hand, which is what you filled out and sent to the board. They're limited to the issues, and we're not getting personal, attacking personalities. Presentations must be relevant to the issue and promote the dignity of the board meeting, and an outline copy of your presentation was included. There's no communication back from the board. Okay, we're simply here to listen, and we appreciate that you are here to have a discussion and getting actively involved in our school district. So with that, the floor is yours.
Well, good evening. I'm Amanda Lynch, and I'm actually the wife of a veteran who has 2 tours in Iraq. My uncles all served in the Army and the Air Force, serving in Korea and Germany, and my great-grandfather served in World War II. Every man in my family, and some women, have been in the military and have fought for this country and its flag and what it represents, which is what today being Flag Day stands for, which is freedom and unity. All Americans united under one nation. That includes all Americans. I am here to represent those families like mine and other citizens of the community. I have a petition signed by 65 people from around our community that are outraged by the graphic that was used in the school's last newsletter. We are only talking about the graphic used in the newsletter. We are not talking about the written article. We are outraged by the mockery and blatant disrespect of the members of our servicemen and women, particularly those of our greatest generation, who have given their lives for the safety of our sovereign nation. The extreme disrespect in the graphic is hateful, and it attempts to equate and compare the fight of those in the LGBTQ+ community to the sacrifices of their grandfathers and great-grandfathers, which doesn't even compare by a fraction to those who fought and died in this country. If these students want respect from others, then they must first learn to respect those who've gone before them. We need to respect our nation, respect our history, and respect our servicemen and women who have given their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. This graphic is reprehensible. I understand that we all have freedom of speech, but just like what Pastor Grimm said in his editorial in the newspaper last week, just because we can does not mean that we should. The American flag should never be replaced by any flag whatsoever. We feel as though this graphic is used trying to compare the LGBTQ+ members to the members of our military from that iconic day during World War II at Iwo Jima. We find that insulting to the families and members of our great military. We, as patriots of the nation, hold our American flag sacred, and to replace it or defile it is disrespectful and reprehensible. We are here to teach the next generation what the school has failed to do and teach a lesson of patriotism and to hold the morals and values that this country was founded on to heart. We expect a printed apology from all involved, including the newspaper, the editors, the Board of Education, the teachers, and the students involved in hijacking this Pulitzer Prize winning photo to advance their own agenda. I know I have time left, and I would like to actually give some of my time to Ryan if she has something to say about her photo.
Got you.
She's not prepared to respond right now.
Thank you.
That's what I asked.
Thank you very much for coming, and appreciate you filling out the paperwork and taking the time to do what you're doing. I think you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you so wish. If not, you're welcome to leave now. It's entirely up to you. Okay?
May I ask that, can we get a copy of that, Amanda?
Yes,
Is this, okay.
that one you gave. I have an extra copy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on then to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay.
Hey, Brad.
Just a second. Yeah, just a second. We'll get to you, Sam. Just a second.
No problem.
Is there, see, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those opposed, please say aye. Motion carries. All right, moving on to old and new business, enterprise vehicle lease program.
All right, Sam, now we got you.
Hey, Brad, how you doing, man?
Good.
I know John Stewart, who's been along in our few meetings, he's kind of joining some of these, so they need to let him in.
Yeah, I will do that.
Cool.
and also John Frank is,
Oh, you just joined.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we've got everybody here. Yeah, we're ready to go, Sam, whenever you are.
Well, man, I'm on standby, ready to address any questions. I really appreciate everybody letting me jump on today.
Okay, would you like to go ahead and go through the handout?
Sure, would you like for me to share my screen, or do you guys have it pulled up?
You can share it, and everybody does have a copy, so
Give me just a moment.
no problem.
All right, Brad, it says that screen sharing is disabled, but if everybody has their packet pulled up, I can slowly work through it.
Yeah, and I will also do the same thing. I'll pull it up for you. And then when you tell me, I'll just go forward.
Perfect. And then everyone on the call today, I do have my area sales manager, John Stewart, who's been on our calls that have led up to this. So he's just along for the ride and here to answer any questions. Hello, everybody.
Hi, John.
Perfect. Brad, I can start on the total cost of ownership slide if you'd like.
Got it up.
All right, perfect. So folks, what we've gone through so far are just a few solutions that we can provide to your school district. I've made Brad and also Freddie aware that we do partner with some local school districts in your general area. And one of the ways that we're able to provide value is by really focusing in on the total cost of ownership. So I won't spend a terrible amount of time on this, but kind of the general concept here is oftentimes folks focus in on the depreciation, which is the top right piece of the pie, while there are a lot of different areas that are to be considered. Fuel, maintenance, insurance, and those are all areas as a fleet management company that we use our expertise to try to not only track and monitor those expenses, but ultimately help lower those for you. Any questions, Brad, or anything from the audience?
No.
Perfect. Well, I will jump forward then to the delivering solutions and driving results slide. So this is, in essence, really all of the different areas that enterprise fleet management can provide solutions to your school district. So we really take a cradle-to-grave approach when it comes to managing fleets. So we can help everywhere from the acquisition all the way down to the resale at the end of the vehicle. And then all throughout the way, there's different areas as far as maintenance programs, fuel programs, different areas that we can kind of help streamline those costs and keep them in check for your district.
Okay.
Anything you wanted me to add on to that, Brad? I know you've heard this a couple times now.
No. Nope.
All right, very good. And so for the next piece here, I wanted to kind of dive into the effective vehicle life cycle. So this is what I basically do for a living right here. Whether it's a school district, really try to find the sweet spot as to when the right time is to replace your fleet. So you'll see you acquire a vehicle, drive it off the lot, you tend to lose about 20% of your value, while as your fleet gets older, your fuel and your maintenance costs are going to continue to go up. So my goal as a fleet manager would be to get with Brad every year, sometimes once or twice a year, to really dive into your fleet and find the best time to replace your vehicles.
Okay?
So for the next slide, again, Brad, I know we went through this a few times, but this is kind of a general plan that we came up with. So you all are probably familiar with a lot of these vehicles. And what we have here is your VIN numbers, your year, your make, your model. Obviously your fleet is owned at this time, your mileage, and then over next to that is an area that we had our resale strategy manager put values on what your fleet is worth today. So you can see that in the current value, and then what the vehicles would be worth in about a year from now. So based off of simply the age of these vehicles, and also the diminished value that occurs over time, you can see that we put kind of a basic plan in place to address your fleet.
No questions? So on to the next one, sir.
All right, perfect. All right, so what we have came prepared here today is what is called basically a menu pricing or a fleet budget overview. So Brad and I have had some conversations concerning the traditional way that your school district has gone about acquiring vehicles, which typically, it sounds like it's 1 to maybe 2 vehicles a year that you fit within your budget. Now, what we've done today is we've come together with a plan essentially where we could address 6 vehicles and keep it within a reasonable first year budget. So a lot of numbers and a lot of information here, but what you'll see starting on the left is the recommended quantity that we proposed, the type of vehicle, the model, the trim level. As we get over, you will see the quantity, term, and estimated annual mileage. Those are all based off of essentially the numbers that Brad has provided me for what your vehicles do in those classes on an annual basis. Now let's get into a little bit of the cost components. So you'll see the monthly cost by vehicle going down, the full maintenance program, which would fix and budget your maintenance all the way through the entirety of the lease, and the annual cost, including maintenance, of each vehicle. For our next category we have over is your annual cost, including maintenance by quantity. So that's taking into account, for example, for 2 Chrysler Voyagers, you're looking at $10,808. And then the next category is the equity that you would have at the end of a 5-year term. So all in all, you can see here that if we were to come in and provide our expertise, that we could potentially replace up to 6 vehicles within around the $30,000 budget, which traditionally in the past, that would look more like 1 or 2 used vehicles within that time frame.
Okay?
I just threw a lot of information, Brad. I know we've gone through this several times, but anybody have anything on this slide?
Is this a traditional lease program? So is this, you're not purchasing the vehicle up front, you're merely leasing the vehicle, and then at some point in time there's a decision made to lease a separate vehicle in lieu of that vehicle?
You got it. So it is an open-ended equity lease. So you do retain equity in the vehicle throughout. So, what we came up with is we based a 5-year lease based off of your lower mileage wanted me to address is, let's say 5 years down the line, you say, hey, we don't really have a use for the vehicle, or we don't necessarily want to replace it. We just want to turn it in. So you would retain all of that equity that you've developed within that vehicle, and it would come back to you in the form of a check if our program wasn't working out the way that it was supposed to.
And the reason we can replace 6 of them versus 1 or 2 is because we're making a lease payment out of that $30,000 versus actually buying them. So the issue is, it's an annual expense versus we may buy them 1 year and be done with it for 4 or 5. We're gonna have an annual expense of $30,000.
Correct. Now, the way that we are able to take this approach is by tapping into a lot of very advantageous incentives that your school district has. So with the buying power that your school district has, you are able to get vehicles almost as cheap as you could getting a used vehicle at this time.
How many vehicles do we get per year, typically? New vehicles or used vehicles?
When they die, typically
We go
got-
until they're dead.
We
Yeah.
haven't had a new one in our district for several years.
Yeah, the last time was, we bought 3 of the, Impalas, and I think that was 3 to 4 years ago.
It was before I came on board, so.
Okay, then, 4 to 5.
Do you guys handle anything with bus fleets? Or is it just our smaller vehicles?
It would simply at this time be just the more traditional smaller vehicles, pickup trucks, cars, and things of that nature. However, we have kind of discussed the ability to potentially look into some telematics and some tracking of the vans, and I'm still waiting back information on that on the buses, sorry.
Okay.
So on the sheet that we're looking at here, the far right in columns show the production dates for the different manufacturers as well as the lead times. So part of what we'll do every year is get together proactively toward the beginning of the manufacturer. And maybe 1 year you don't need anything, and that's totally fine. But what Sam will do is he'll walk you through the strategy, what the pricing looks like, and also the timeline. So the pricing that we put together is based on vehicles that would be ordered directly from the manufacturer, because that will be the most cost effective. On average, it's between $1,500 and $2,000 cheaper to go that route than buying one off the ground, because we're able to truly customize the exact vehicle you want. No additional specs that we don't necessarily need, but then it'll arrive, 5-6 months down the road to then be up and running into your fleet.
Okay?
Any questions from the audience on the fleet budget slide?
Nope.
And Brad, if you wanted to move over to the 10-year model slide, I can walk through this in an overview fashion. I know it's late in the day, and I'm sure nobody wants to stare at numbers at 6:30.
Yep, got that up, pulled up, Sam.
Perfect. I know, again, we've been through this a couple times, but just to kind of drive home what we're looking here, is you'll see up in the top, the gray and white area, these are more so assumptions. Well, not necessarily assumptions, but for example, your current fleet right now, you have around 15 vehicles. Your cycle is around 12 years is how long you hold it. Your average annual miles broken down by your entire fleet is around 7,500 miles. And your average owned maintenance cost per mile is around 10 cents per mile. Additionally, the middle category, we took into consideration some of the variables really in today's marketplace. So the average price gallon fuel is around $2.72. I think this is going to continue to steadily increase as we're seeing. Your current average miles per gallon across your entire fleet, 16. And your average monthly maintenance on your fleet breaks down to be about $62.50. So for the proposal here, we'd be looking at 15 vehicles over a 5-year span. Your proposed average miles per gallon by recycling and getting newer vehicles across all vehicles would be 27.5 miles to the gallon. And your average monthly maintenance would potentially go down from 62.5 down to 31.47. So those are some of just the numbers that feed into this analysis. Any questions on that?
No.
One quick thing to add, Sam, for the 16 current miles per gallon, what we did is we took the current year, make, and model, and we looked at fueleconomy.gov at what those vehicles got when they were brand new, and factored in some fuel degradation over time based on industry averages. But the maintenance numbers came directly from the data that you all provided.
Right.
And so what I'll do here is I'll focus really kind of out of the gate on how this plan would work and what the 10-year impact would be to Waubonsee School District. So starting in 2022, your fleet size would still be 15. We would propose that you would replace 6 vehicles, which would bring you down to 9 owned vehicles and 6 leased. Based off of my last slide, you can see here the leased budget that you would need for adding 6 vehicles would be $26,956. The owned maintenance, we'll talk about that in a second, on the remaining 9 vehicles would be $67.50, since you would be retiring some of the older vehicles out of your fleet. And then as well, you would have to take into consideration the fully fixed and budgeted maintenance on the new leased vehicles. Additionally, we could go out on your behalf and capitalize on really our resale expertise and sell around $9,000, which would be the vehicles that would be replaced. Your fuel cost would go down by refreshing with newer, more fuel economic vehicles. And that would bring your overall fleet budget to $42,804 and a net cash of $2071. So the plan would go as following, and again, this would be something that is not concrete in stone, but in order to cycle your entire fleet out over a 5-year span, we would then do 3 vehicles the next year, 3 vehicles next year, etc. And then in 2027, when those 6 vehicles come up to lease term, we would then sell those vehicles, which you can see the strong resale that the vehicles would have after a 5-year span, and continue to trim down on that overall fleet budget. So all things considered, if this program were to be implemented over a 10-year time frame, the savings to the school district would be around $19,712. And this would be to fully refresh your fleet with this plan stated.
Just operationally question, do we need 15 vehicles? I mean, that sounds like a lot for our district.
With the vans to move food are included in this pickup, and then older Suburban. And so that one slide that showed the this slide here that showed Chevy, the Caravan, the Dodge Caravan, the Chevy Express that we use for food, Suburban, 2 Suburbans that have 170,000, 143, the Buick, and then the Impalas, and then Silverado. But we don't have to have all of those known. And Sam, again, we talked, because we initially said, hey, could we do 3, just to, let's say, the worst ones and see what we got. And the answer to that was,
Oh, I'm sorry. So you were queuing me up there.
yeah,
So basically, the answer to that, folks, is if you're looking just to do 3 vehicles, it's not necessarily something that you would need a fleet management company to come in and help. It's not our expertise. At that point, we're really nothing different than a dealership. My goal as a fleet manager is to really provide the most cost-effective solution. So 3 vehicles wouldn't really be enough to start a program, and that's why, according to what we put together here today, if we looked at closer to 5 or 6 vehicles, we could still provide an overall impact to your budget, kind of at that bare minimum there.
okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. So, anybody have any questions that I could help answer?
Because some of it will also be with what happens with a bond or scenario, and some of those traveling, we wouldn't have a use for them. Sam, there is a question, just thinking out loud. Let's say that the rest of the fleet we didn't need, and we got 6, and we did something with a bond where we're consolidating schools and wouldn't need the rest of them. Can you resell those for us?
I assume you're talking about the rest of the vehicles outside of the initial ones you order?
Correct.
Yes, we could help facilitate the resale of those vehicles. And did that help answer that, Brad?
It did.
Okay.
And then, if nobody had any additional questions, I just had a couple more slides that I wanted to go through, unless anything is out there.
Nope, no more questions.
Perfect. So I just want to touch really on the operational expense categories here for just a moment. So you'll see a slide that says operating expenses maintenance. So the really cool thing about Enterprise Fleet Management is we have our own national service department. And essentially what these are a bunch of gearheads that used to work in shops that wanted to go to more of a corporate lifestyle. So through the maintenance program, we're able to offer your school district really 2 different types of maintenance programs. So full maintenance would be what we would recommend for any new vehicle that comes with the maintenance card associated with that vehicle and a fixed expense every single month. So how it works is your drivers take the vehicles to a maintenance shop, and we do the rest of the work directly with the maintenance provider. Additionally, we do have a maintenance management program for your own vehicles, which is also a maintenance card, but it comes as a pass-through cost. So, for example, let's say you take a vehicle with 120,000 miles into the shop on maintenance management. Maybe you're quoted a $500 repair. Our technicians will work with that shop to basically negotiate at our pricing point that we have with them so that you're only paying for the maintenance that you need done. All of that maintenance cost comes through to a customer website, and all of that data is housed along with the rest of your fleet information.
Okay?
And then Brad, we went through the fuel piece, but Enterprise Fleet Management partners with Bright Express or WEX, if you've ever heard of them. And it is a universal fuel card. So the fuel card works similarly to the maintenance card. Your employees would take the vehicles to the pump, they would enter a PIN code, they would enter their mileage, and all of that fuel would be housed on a consolidated statement for you every month, as well as all that data would come through to the customer website. One other thing that we can do would be to set you up with a 5 cent per gallon discount at either Conoco Mobile or Exxon locations.
Okay?
And then just to bring it all home here, guys, one of the really great parts of working for Enterprise is we've invested millions of dollars into a client website. I've referenced this a couple of times today, but this comes as a essentially free to use service for you and anyone that you add onto the program, Brad. So different people that would be interested in being invested in knowing more about your fleet would have access to this website. It's going to house your maintenance spend. It's going to house your fuel spend, your lease payments. Everything is consolidated on this website, which kind of helps having to move around your mouse as much and go to different Excel sheets.
Right.
So that's all I have for today. John, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Any questions from your team, Brad?
No, I think most everything, and we've got the next step slide, so if they chose to do that in July, the board, we could work through that. But and then the information about the flexible financing options and what would happen if we wanted to walk away from the lease as well, what that would look like, and we could do that if it wasn't working, so, or for whatever reason.
And did you want me to go through that slide, Brad, or?
I don't think so. I think everybody's got a pretty good understanding of that, but appreciate the time, Sam, John. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. I know Brad has my information. I hope the rest of your meeting goes well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Any discussion to be had around that tonight? Any feedback? Thoughts? Brad, I mean, you think this is where we ought to go?
I think it's an option, and the reason I say that is because of things we're sending kids, some of our vehicles that are a little shaky, with Suburbans and some other things when we send them to national events and things like that. So that is a possibility, and then also just the ability to keep rotating through those and build up the equity and sell those other vehicles. I do know the pickup that Freddie drives is about shot, and it's just a choice. Some people will say, hey, I'll lease my vehicles all the time, constantly do that, or I'd rather own it and take care of it. And so just how, again, you can see that if you stay in it, it would, quote, save the district money, but you got to stay in the process to do it.
Yep.
And, it is a choice, because basically what we've done is every year schedule or put in our budget $70,000 for a bus in capital outlay. We may or may not be able to use it based upon every other expense, but it's in there. So you just take that every year, take 29,000, 20, whatever it was, thousand out of that amount. And so how you want to do that, and is it the importance of the buses, or is it the importance of the vehicles? So, and we did, like I said, we asked about, the three Suburbans and the pickup. So let's see how it goes. And they're like, well, that doesn't do anything for us. So,
Because those in your mind are the most important to get
Yep.
replaced
yep,
currently.
because they're, and not that, the students' transportation in those Suburbans and the use of those and/or a van, that a lot of people are going to. And then with the pickup, it's well past its usage as far as that goes. And pickups right now, as you guys probably know, resale value is really good. So,
They're really expensive to replace.
yeah.
I guess one piece of feedback I guess I have is I always get a little bit jumpy when we take local control away or our ability to spend our dollars locally.
Mhm.
I mean, taxpayers fund this, and I like to spend that money back with taxpayers locally as well.
Mhm.
And so the piece about, will they work with our local service centers that we use?
Yeah.
Blue
I
Sun
talked-
Auto, S&S Auto, and
Mhm.
Co-op. and-
Yeah, we talked to them and they said they would reach out to them and work with them on the maintenance group. And then also, like Stop to Shop is Conoco that they were mentioning, or Phillips 66, one of those two, I don't remember
Yeah.
which one. But for the fuel discount as well, so. Because that was our concern as well. We wanted to stay as local as much as possible, and they said, yeah, we could do that.
And then currently, are we reinvesting that 70,000 in vehicles and or buses on an annual basis? It's there, but we're not spending it. And why is that?
Well, because if we have other expenses, it eats it up in capital outlay and we don't have it. And typically, like our last time, we got 70,000 and we got a used one for 54, which we got a really good deal on. We want to probably look to continue that as well. Yeah. But no, we don't reinvest it in vehicles. We typically haven't. And like I said, other than the fact of driving until they die and replace them. But we also talked to them about renting a vehicle like to take to Nashville, and didn't work. Won't work out.
Because,
They can't get them.
oh, they don't have them to rent out.
Right.
We ever have situations where we used all three Suburbans at one time?
Mhm.
We had all three.
Mhm. Just like that, or going to National FFA or whatever. For flexibility, the use of the Suburbans. We have the Expedition, we got a Suburban that's pretty good, and then we have one Suburban that is shaky, sending them out.
So it's a lot of money to commit.
Mhm.
We're not committing 70,000 to our vehicle program on an annual basis already, and if we did something like this, you would be committing all but half of that.
Right.
And it's a house payment that comes every year, whether you want it to or not, so I guess
Yep.
slight concern there. I guess personally, knee-jerk reaction, I would rather spend 70,000 one year and update the 3 or 4 that we need to update until we see what happens overall with our budget and see what happens with a bond potentially if we get something like that. Maybe we go from 15 down to 6, and
Can't buy a vehicle, that's fine.
Not yet.
What's that?
Not yet.
ESSER funds. ESSER funds.
For people one time expensive.
Yeah.
Jerome.
Well, I take it back.
Exactly.
You can purchase a bus. Some have been approved for buses.
I like this one.
Yeah, but it has to be that you have an additional route. I mean,
That's
so, yeah, but yes, they have done that. And again, for us, it would be, we couldn't have an additional route, we can't get drivers to stay.
Okay,
And yeah, we'll spread people out. Yes, something to talk about.
I appreciate that
Sure.
information because it's mind-blowing, so we'll talk about it. Did you have a question, Kelly?
No, it's just that everything that you were asking, saying is what I was thinking, so.
Okay.
And over 10 years, it was a savings of 20,000, and that's if we actually spent that much money every year on the replacements and that.
I've heard somebody say on our board before that those types of deals are really hard to track, whether we actually save the money or not too. But their website brings it all together, makes it a little nicer to do
Yeah.
that for sure.
Yeah.
It's a great program if you have a larger fleet, or if they're in a situation where we really are spending that much money. But if we only have a handful of vehicles that we don't want to drive until they're 200,000+ miles on it, then I don't know, you try to focus on those. I don't know.
Yeah. Something to think about before
Not
next
necessarily
meeting.
against it, but yeah.
Any other before I move on? Dawn, you ready to move on? Okay. Moving on then to bond and facilities. Jim.
Thank you. Here representing the committee, we've met, you have a packet in front of you. If you want to grab that. Excuse me. The committee's had a chance to meet twice, the last two Sunday afternoons, 2 sessions, 2 hours each. You can see committee members listed there. And during those 2 times, we did a lot of review of data and then got to work on trying to rebuild the bond as best this committee could think would be best. Reviewed goals, the general one was improve district's ability to be sustainable now and into the future. We looked at the current footprint. We looked at demographics, population for the district. Reviewed bond timeline. I'll get into that more in detail later. We had a formal survey, and I have not had a chance to talk to you about that. You all have one. I assume you've had a chance to look it over. The first category was, why did the last bond fail? Number 1 reason was cost of bond. Number 2 was patrons felt they did not fully understand the district needs and the remedies of the bond. And then the next one, so we delve into that, how well did you understand the bond? And parents said 84%, staff said 21%, and board said 50%. Then how supportive were you personally of the bond? And this was pretty high, very consistent across the board in the 70, basically around the 70 percentile. Were you asked for input in the bond? And you can see the numbers. Obviously, the board was very involved.
You want to?
Staff.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm behind the scenes.
Okay, all right.
I'm the roadie.
Oh, you're trying to get hooked up.
Yeah.
Good.
Can I pull it volume off of? That's next to the.
Yeah, if you just get that label.
Yeah, and pardon me, Maria. I think you all know her from your password. Okay, good. So staff was at the 21%, did not feel like they were really involved. I don't know how well you did that or how that would have worked. I've had a chance to interview several staff and then did a focus group with students as well. In addition to our surveys that we ran of parents, 153 responded, staff 58 responded, and 6 of the board members responded, as well as a high school focus group, and also interviewing teachers. Next, I took your bond literature that you passed out with the key needs to be remedied by the bond. This was shared with your public. Safety and security came in number 3. Number 2, believe it or not, was tech and trade skills. And number 1 was efficient building and space. So those were interesting. The next, which footprint best fit the educational, emotional, safety, security, and economic health needs of the district? 1, attendance center was strong, 38% among parents, 55% staff said, and they could see they wanted to be together, 67% of the board. 2 attendance centers, a little bit stronger for parents, which they were fine with that. That was kind of interesting. They did not mind the drive. And then on down as you can read it. Finally, acceptable upper limits of the bond, $25 million. Parents were very invested at this point. 25% at $20 million, but you can see there at the top, very invested in a good program. Staff at 35%, and then the board was split evenly between 20 and 15 million. So you had 25, 20, 20, and 15. And we used this data as we talked with the committee. Our charting was helpful. For your benefit, down at the bottom, parent educational satisfaction with the survey. How satisfied were you with the education of your children in the district? And that was a 66.2%. That's strong. 2/3 said they were either satisfied or very satisfied. So that's good. Student focus group was a little lower, but the kids were great. Sorry, I forgot your first name. Yeah, I wanted to call you Callie. There's Callie.
Yeah.
I knew Callie wasn't right, so. Kelly's son participated, and we had sophomores, juniors, seniors, freshmen. And they were really good. They were very good. They all were, and then they wrote down their concerns, and then I asked them to give the ability of rating. And you've, I think, seen this in your other packet. Survey results, conversations, and focus groups. So anyway, didn't want to bore you with that, but kind of rev you up a little bit because it did influence some of our decision making as we went along. Then on number 6, we talked briefly about ESP and what could be funded. A lot of the numbers that Maria will show you here a little bit. She is showing some of the numbers that could possibly be taken out by ESP with a good program. But as Brad has mentioned, there's been some leadership challenges there. Brad and I both have a friend that we have work there. Actually, one of the representatives, a 52-year-old, very healthy lady, dies of an aneurysm. And she's a former superintendent down at Belle Plaine. I worked with her when I worked with their district. She died May 24th and funeral May 31st. It's shocking. So at any rate, some of those things are up in the air. Maria's been in contact with them. And it's been a back and forth. ESSER funds, you've already heard about. There is a possibility of some of them being used. Flooring, some other things are the potential. We, as a committee, reviewed and read the Vermitten report, structural engineering. We've had a chance as well. And basically stating that the Alma High School and Paxville Junior High were structurally sound, but both dealing with water abatement, water situations there. We've introduced the concept of the CMAR, Construction Manager at Risk, which allows us to bring another person to the team, and that would be a contractor. So then you complete a team of contractor, engineer, and architect. That's in your hands. By July 12th, we'll be voting on this, and so we look forward to adding someone. Patrick Shutter over here, some of you may know, was one of the ones that I've worked with in the past in a couple of our bond construction projects. Meeting results and recommendations. So we got a little formal here. Committee agreed to recommend to the board districts to retain 2 attendance centers, 1 each. Committee agreed to recommend to the board to remove from the school's inventory both following buildings, properties currently owned by the district, and of course that's based upon when you've replaced them adequately with new. We assume they're going to be accordions or flexible units that you're going to use during the construction process, and we're looking forward to that. And then it was also mentioned to donate Maple Hill playground and ball fields to the city, but that's yours. We did not use the word demo, we did not use the word sell, and we did not use the word lease, but lease and sell were words that used. And we of course understand probably why a lease might work. And I won't get into that. Why we might consider a lease. Retain ownership and still get the benefit. I've actually talked to a couple companies that do this with schools. They've just done Salina, 61 rooms, 61 classrooms, and converted each classroom to a single unit studio. And then they use the ground to build 2 and 3 plexes, and done very well with it. And once it's developed, then they sell it. So they go through the process of developing it and receive federal funding and assistance to do that. They've done two schools in Topeka. Okay, our next challenge is let's get a bond ceiling price. We're running down 2 rails. How much we're going to spend? What will it buy? So we reviewed the survey. I've already talked about the parents, the board, their ceilings, interaction with the public. These were just my interviews with close to 40 people, ranging from 13 to 18 plus. We did do a comp with Riley. Riley did a $15 million bond for 20 years, roughly 18 months ago. If and you're going to go for 25 years, so we just took a rough extrapolation of 20% longer to pay, so 20% of 15 would put that on the 18th. You know, the climate's very different now, and Maria can speak to that, or Patrick could, with inflation, but also construction costs and demand. The committee, after discussing all information and reviewing bond plan recommendations, we set a ceiling at 18.5. And that's a hard set. All costs ultimately attached or attributed anyway will fall below that. And we have right away out of the chute, you've got soft costs of roughly 10%. In this economic world, you're going to want to set it probably a 10% contingency. So right away, you suck back 20% out of whatever this is going to be. So now you're looking at those are your real dollars that now you can start spending for something else. In a normal year, probably a 10% contingency. You could really work with that and fudge that around a little bit, but not recommended this year. So there we go. Are you ready to go? I'm going to turn it over to Maria now, who's been working with you for a long time, and go through what we're talking about, and then I'll close it up with our next steps.
So, as Jim said, we have 6 different plans that the committee was looking at. This plan is the one that they came together with and are recommending. This has starting with Paxico, removing the original portion of the building and building back to make it a pre-K through 6 facility in Paxico. And then in Alma, keeping the original high school, moving the 7th and 8th grade to the annex, using the multi-purpose room as the wrestling room, and building a larger tech edition. This whole handout that you also have line items, breakout of cost on the 2nd page that lists each item and what it costs. This is similar to the format that you saw before. On the very back page, you also have a more breakdown on new construction versus minor or a major renovation, and then an estimate of how the money at the original high school building is being spent. So I think this is similar to many of the other plans that you guys have looked at. I think post-bond, this is pretty close to a couple of them. It takes a few pieces from each one and goes through it. So we could go through each line item if you want, or the other major components of the plan would be the district office moves to where the shop building is now, and taking down the brick tower building that's over there. One piece that we had talked about before but wasn't on some of the plans that we talked about was having a link here between the original high school and the main building for security. That's one of the things we kind of went back and forth on. So this plan is $18.5 million. Which is a 22% mill increase with those, considering the portion that's coming off. So
That 22 mils includes the portion that's coming off.
Correct.
One thing we're a little bit more aggressive with was the ag tech edition. Might be too aggressive, but it previously was around 8,000. Those 3 are currently occupying about 9,700 feet, so we took it on up to be closer to that. And we think something that's hopefully a plus here in Elma will be that ag tech edition and really making it something that will be great. And we're responding to, if you notice back here on our survey, the tech and trade skills was number 2 among reasons for supporting the bond. None of the positioning is for sure. Now, it did come up the possibility of sewer and gas might be underneath, moving from the street into the annex. So that might have to be moved over a little bit. We were thinking about moving it over onto Ohio Street. I'm just kidding. Joke.
Strike
Okay.
it from the notes.
Missouri, no. No, it's being very respectful for that. We are talking about some extra things actually on that street for safety. There's some security diamonds that do flash consistently. They're solar run. They're not a lot of money, but we're looking at that at Ohio, adding some things to that, just for security that will run during the daytime, during school hours. The elementary up there, as Maria has shared well, was looked at as, okay, it's replaced, but rather than saying demo or anything like that right now, we're really looking at that. There's been some other needs. So that's open. We know that whatever we do, we have to move it around inside the 18.5, but there's been other discussions of potential needing storage, or some other ideas have been bandied around. If you don't have more, and maybe it will, let me just go ahead then and go back to the white sheet, and let's do next steps at the bottom so you know. And number 4, Maria's taken time to share this, and she's worked hard at getting all this prepared for today. But I did want to emphasize on 4, if you see the committee reviewed bond options, associated pricing, and tentatively agreed on plan 3.0 attached. Tentatively means much pricing and detail yet to be reviewed, discussed, and included in the final recommendation. So let's drop down to the next steps. June 14th, that's tonight, and I did use the word tentative. I think we have to be careful to go out and say, this is absolutely going to happen, or that will happen. Those are discussions yet. Week of June 21, we're going to go to the polls. We're going to go with our phone survey to registered voters, at least 150. 3 to 5 minutes. We'll be creating our poll now. It will ask their support for some of the major things we're talking about. Obviously, the Paxico, elementary move, obviously ag tech, and then talking about what we're going to try to do with the high school for upgrades. Make sure that's an assurance to the public that it's not going to be knocked down or neglected. And then we're going to test the 18.5 ceiling. How do they feel about that? What's their comfort level? Last of June, 1st of July, committee will review the phone poll results. And at which point we start to make adjustments. Week of July 12th, we look forward to adding a contractor to the committee to continue to refine bond pricing ideas, bringing in other points. Mid-July, final recommendation for the board. I know that isn't fit with your timing right now, but we want to take our time and do this right, so it means some more meetings. August 1st, you have to finalize project scope. Maria will share that with you there on the back. Your run out then in blue, then you're on the fast track down here. And your first deadline comes up August 1st with a final scope project, finalized bond amount, through plan of finance. And from there, it's a race, because you file with the state, publish in the paper, and blah, blah, blah. But just going to take that time to do recommend tentative, do recommend that we feel we've got a lot of work. And really, we want your input, too. You are the educational leaders of the district. And whether that happens tonight, obviously, this is new to you, but get back. Maria, get back to us. And you see your committee members. I didn't recognize them. I should have, but Dwayne, Irv, Melissa, Frankie, Robin, Dan, and Tracy. We tried to get 2 from each. We asked Tracy as a staff. Jim sat in as board member at large. But we do want your input. And there are questions you want on the bond. Some districts have asked, give us an evaluation of how satisfied you are with the district. sometimes we do a test on that, just a quick question can be asked.
Any questions? Carlton?
I have one question,
Go ahead.
and I appreciate Kerwin's work on this and the committee's work to come up with this. I'm curious though, why 2 attendance centers instead of 1? According to the survey, the staff and board were, on the same page with that, and then parents weren't significantly supportive of 2. So I'm curious as to how or why we're 2 instead of 1.
I can answer that. I've told you before, committees do not come up with good ideas. That's a fact. You all know, you laugh about it. But here's
I'm just
a
curious.
crap idea from you.
I'm curious from the committee, I guess, as to why.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That is.
The committee felt that in order to appeal to voters and to balance the investment, they felt that 2 would be best.
I would also say
The-
they're trying to pass a bond.
Well, let me answer
Just a
one
minute,
more.
And I've been saying, and maybe I said this to you, this may pass, whatever it is, and it's the bond that will pass. But does that mean it's the right bond for the long-term health of our district? Or is it just the bond that will pass? There's a difference in those things. And I don't think, and then they're in the game to pass the bond. That's not what and I don't think that's what you guys should be here for.
Let me answer that. There's some other reasons they're coming back. One of the other reasons is we still want to try and attract Maple Hill people. And the response there was that Paxico is much closer to Maple Hill than was the high school, than was Alma. And as kids get older, they can drive. A longer drive is not as long. But to appeal to the Maple Hill younger children, that was another reason for that placement there, Jerome.
Thank you for that, Jim. And Jerome, I agree with you that I don't want to just create a bond because we think it'll pass.
That's their purpose.
If it's not in line with what we think is educationally the best for the district. Unfortunately, 20 years ago, after several attempts to pass a bond, they came up with a bond that passed.
Yeah,
And
Hardly the worst thing that could have happened to our district.
Good example.
Right,
A
and that's
good
where we're
example.
at now.
Yeah.
It got us a new gym and into a new science classroom, and technology classroom,
Well, what's the point?
which
What's
is
the point?
needed, but it also created an additional investment in all other communities that we're now trying to move away from. So I do appreciate that. I was just curious as to why it came to 2 when it doesn't seem that from the survey results that was a high or a strong majority for 2 attendance centers.
Definitely wasn't a landslide, is what you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, so I guess I'm curious because it's contrary to what the survey would have said.
Yeah, and the number one reason was, and I didn't state it, I stated it second, was to try and attract and appeal to keeping the far east end of our district, putting something closer to them. Yeah, and I know.
And I know, I
know
mean,
you're
I
in
live
Maple
there,
Hill, and
I live there, so I appreciate that.
I feel bad for, for the district in the way it's, it seems to be stretched out, separated. I won't forget my first interview. I won't tell you who she was, but she just came right out of the chutes on this 111 all in Elma. And I heard it. I won't repeat, I can go through all the reasons. It made a lot of sense. But then as I come back to a committee, and Jerome, maybe you're right, we shouldn't do committees. But we did. We tried to choose good leaders. I didn't know all these people, but others did, and they recommended them. But yeah, the number one reason was to try to make an appeal, not turn their backs on the far eastern end of the community, of the district, and not turn their backs on the Paxico people as well. I interviewed a lot of Paxico people, large families, 2 or 3 that I interviewed there. they wanted to maintain, something on their side of the district as well. So they were district people that spoke. I heard the first one here, I heard them there, and I visited with, I can remember I won't say who she is, but in Maple Hill, did some interviews over there. And what was interesting is most of the Maple Hill people I talked to either said, yes, we'd love to keep something here, but we realized that if it went to tax bill, we could, at least that's closer. So the support was there. Are we in it to win it? We always are. We'll walk away if it's not winnable. So we're not trying to set it up for us to win. We're trying to set it up for you to get the best that you can. And that came from these people. And yeah, I hear you. I see that.
Yeah,
We looked at the same data and
I guess
Yeah.
I guess I'm surprised
yeah.
a little bit, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah, I think if you just follow the data here, there's one big piece that's still missing that we don't have, and that's your registered voters. And we've got 150 of them to speak. And maybe one of you, and in fact, you might get that call. Sometimes we just ask board members just to pass on it so we can go on and find another uninformed person to jump in. But the likelihood of a board member, usually one or two get a call. Staff will get a call, and others. But we are ginning up for that, and we'll see what they have to say. And that will speak a lot, that, we could really hear some things here. Yeah, that's a good question, Kelly. It's a good question.
Is the cost anything to do with the 2 versus 1? In a sense that,
In other words,
What-
would we be at
Yeah,
18.5
correct.
million
I'm just trying to
in
think
one?
back.
Yeah,
Correct.
so we had an option that was largely a renovation, all in Alma, and it was 17.7 million.
So the same, essentially similar, the same,
Yes.
cost,
Yes.
That would,
which would renovate and add on the current scales.
Yes.
Thank you
yeah,
for that.
it's,
Appreciate that.
it's, we've done 18 of these. And
Maria, are you pulling up the option for the one that you guys reviewed that was all in Alma, the cost of it?
Right there,
Yeah.
Okay, so we would renovate, and it would be 16, 17, almost 18 million to renovate and have a K-12 in Alma. That was the option that the committee reviewed.
Because
maybe
you're
you
adding,
could look at that. Yeah.
and you're adding a couple of additions, an ag tech
Yeah.
and a 4 through 6.
4 through 6 edition, 7 and 8 edition, and a tech edition.
Okay.
It also has the larger link, so.
So essentially, you could technically do the same exact bond, 18.5 million, and do it in all a K through 12 in Alma, or do an $18.5 million bond and have a split facility like
Yes.
what the committee recommended. Go ahead, I'll call on you.
Jim, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
What was, how were the questions asked? So the committee, obviously, they were in the same room together with each other,
Mhm.
talking about what to do with what facilities. The questionnaires that you have where it came back that one facility was recommended, that was individual, wasn't it?
Yes. Well, they got the survey.
I guess what I'm getting at is feelings, when you're in a committee, and Jerome, to your point, maybe the best decisions or what needs to happen doesn't necessarily come out of a committee because of feelings. I have a hard time telling somebody, that's against their wishes how I really feel about something, but a one-on-one, I might feel a little bit different.
And it's anonymous here.
Yeah. Part of my question was wrapped around the 153. Do you feel like that is a valuable representative sample? When we just came out of an election that had 2,000 and, I don't know, round up to 2,100 individuals come out and vote, and we've got, I guess part of me feels like the 153 people that responded here were the ones that were extremely passionate about this. And it's the ones that are on the fence that we haven't even talked to or got any feedback from yet. yet we're going to try and wrap this up and help us make a decision, and I'm a little concerned about that.
Good, okay, well, it is the parents, so parents out of that 2,000 would probably be 40% maybe. So you could reduce that down, now you're talking roughly 33 to 40%. Statistically significance can start at 6%, but at 30% of the sampling is, you can be very statistically significant and show correlation. So I guess we want to get into the statistics side of it.
Yeah.
So we're at 33, figure somewhere between 33 and 40% among parents responding. And yeah, you're right, they might have been the passionate ones, they might have been the ones that just took the time to do it and didn't, some were busy, it might have indicated that. Yeah, please don't discount what we're trying to do then with the, registered voters. And,
Right.
we're sure not gonna skew that.
Sure.
That's just a rolling call center, and the calls just roll through, and until you get a dial-up, and then the person takes the call on the computer screen and works it through.
I was just really excited, probably like some others here, with this information being presented at the committee to show that the board, the parents were close, and then the staff was overwhelmingly in support of one center. I was expecting maybe a different result out of the.
I was an administrator for several years, and I looked at this bond from almost a personal standpoint now. I've talked to so many people and driving out here 7, 8 times and getting to know the area and walking through it. So yeah, I've got some real personal feelings on this too. But as a consultant, that's not my job to express my personal feelings for it.
Not to them, but it is your job to express it to us. That's what we hired you for.
No, I'm expressing their results.
Yeah. Dawn, do you have any feedback?
Yeah. No. Just a second, Don. Okay.
Okay, you can hear me all right?
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah, I think it's kind of sad on our part if we're looking to just please people rather than if we're on the board, I would think, and that we would be trying to do things that are financially very smart decisions and doing things. And when we have results that say one attendance center, why do we look to put 2 attendance centers up? And I think even though if they're close to the same amount of money, you're kind of kicking that can down the road so that you continue to have this issue come up every 20 years, 25 years. You're going to do that. Why don't we do something that's going to last? I thought that's what we had talked about at one time, but we just kick the can down the road because we don't want to upset our friends. We're presenting something. We're not saying this is what you have to do, but let's present a plan that really does something and can show it saves the district money. And there's no way that you can tell me that 2 attendance centers are going to be cheaper than 1. To me, it just boggles my mind that we're so worried about upsetting a friend, and that's not what we're doing. We're a district, no matter how we look at it, and everybody benefits out of it. You've got an east side, you've got a west side that goes almost to 177 that a lot of people forget about. There may not be as many kids there, but there are still kids that come here, so they have to drive. We just worry about too many things other than what we probably ought to.
Well, let me say this is good discussion. I think you as a board are, you are charged with it. And last time you did take, I think, what was recommended and redid it. If you want to, that's your charge. There's no reason why you have to follow what these people have come to you and said.
But we have more patron communication getting ready to come, correct?
Oh,
For
yeah.
phone surveys. So, obviously, that is going to be important, or there will be questions asked that help us understand if they prefer one attendance center versus two, correct?
Exactly.
And so, I guess my personal feelings are, if that comes back again, statistically advantageous to one attendance center, it's a no-brainer, in my personal opinion. So,
Sure.
Callie, go ahead.
Well, and to just kind of follow up, that's kind of what I was gonna say, is I think, you know, this is tentative. This was based on committee. It's tentative. We've got a significant amount of people to hear from yet. And so I don't know that getting up in arms yet about one or two is really what we should do, because I think we need to just wait and hear what the next recommendations are. And you presented this to us. I appreciate this data. I appreciate that you compile it. I appreciate the drawings, and I think that's helpful. And you know, when we hear more, then that comes back, and maybe at that point the committee says, well, you know, and I do think that, I think to your point, that it is hard to say things in a group when you're trying to appease people, but I also think that it's a good representation of people too. And so we need to not discount what they have to say. And I think that they're investing their time to try and help us. So I don't want to downplay that they're giving their time to help as well. So I appreciate their input.
Absolutely.
I would just make a comment that when you ask the question, and not to get too much into the details of what you'll ask, but when you ask the question to patrons in the survey of one attendance center versus two attendance center, it's very important to clarify where that one attendance center would be.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
an extremely important piece to the puzzle. Making sure they understand that one attendance center would be in is very important to clarify. But I appreciate the work that's been done. I know it's been a lot of work. You've done surveys, you've done several meetings with these individuals. Personally, I think one attendance center or two attendance centers puts us in a sustainable, as a district, in a sustainable future. And I use that, I say that because I look at other 2A schools our size, and a majority of 2A schools in the state of Kansas operate out of 2 locations. Some operate out of 1, a few, I think it's less than 10. And a few, again, less than 15 operate out of 3. A majority of 2A schools operate out of 2 locations. I see that as a sustainable method. I also see 1 as very sustainable. So.
And you're gonna have a new building either way for you in the plan right now, which is very sustainable. Or, that'll be there, and it should be much more efficient per square foot. We have a lot of efficiencies tonight from Enterprise. You'll have a lot of efficiencies there. Staff together, that solves one of those things. The elementary especially want to be together. Formative years, working with each other. Your Alma High School has proven to be, as it stands currently, is proven to be sustainable for quite a while.
Just don't build them like that anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Not all of them.
Okay. Any
We-
further? Go
Well, I
ahead.
heard instructions that we're gonna test for 1 or 2 attendance centers. We will identify where they'll be located. So we will test for that.
Okay.
Anything
That'll
else?
be good, that'll be good information. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The only thing I will add, the schedule for the CN process, are you guys all up to date on that and anything? So, we sent out RFQ, I think there's 5 construction managers that are looking at it right now. Their proposals are due, the 16th this month. In order to get this to where they're hired by the July 12th board meeting, because you have these dates on your sheets, we would need to send out a notification of the shortlist to those that are submitted, and then on the 23rd. Then June 25th, we're planning a facilities tour, which will help them get a better idea of the plans. We'll follow that with some information on the project scope and estimates so that they have that information going forward. And then they submit their costs to do the work on June 30th. That goes to the state, and they put together a scoring chart for that. And then we have interviews on July 7th, so that you could make a recommendation on the 12th.
Is there anything we have to do on our
Yeah.
side? So we would have to have a special board meeting essentially?
Well, so we set this up on the 12th, so that one wouldn't have to be a special board meeting. A lot of times you do it by committee, or you do the interviews as a special meeting. If you just have like 3 board members involved and have a committee that makes the selection, some administrators sometimes do it that way.
You have something?
Maria?
Yeah.
A lot of the contractors are gonna ask which option you're gonna go with,
Yeah.
so they know how to price it. Might be some of the, I mean, and it can change, obviously, depending on what moves forward, but we will typically ask that question.
Right. So the more information that we can give them, we'll have to tell them a scope of work and the current estimated cost so that you're comparing the same thing. If we have a bunch of different options and somewhere in between here, they're not going to be able to compare the same things.
But we don't expect to go with that scope of work?
It can adjust, yeah.
I mean, it kind of looks like 1 attendance center or 2 attendance centers at 18.5 million. I mean, I hate to dumb it down quite that simple, but it's going to depend on what the phone surveys come in as to which one it's going to be, but,
The 2 options.
So for management, two locations is more expensive for us to manage than one location,
Yeah.
one site.
do
Probably
they
not a
typically
huge
have the
difference,
ability to
but-
give a couple of quotes, or that's not appropriate to ask?
I would say that that's not really typical. I think you would pick one and then you would select them and then negotiate afterwards to revise that to the revised scope.
Well, then they probably ought to price the 2 attendance centers, because that's
Yeah.
going to be more expensive, and if we go down to 1, then it would make it cheaper anyways. Would that be,
Don't look at me.
I'm not trying to make decisions for the board. I'm just like, well, if we know worst case scenario, what it's gonna cost, and something happens and we change, the committee changes the scope of the process, then maybe we can cheapen that up. Is that enough guidance?
So there would, sorry.
Go ahead.
So you would need a group of people to review the qualifications and then to make that shortlist.
This June 16th.
Yeah. And I believe you're getting them all electronically, so you can share them.
Ooh, that's too big.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
When do they have to be reviewed by? We need to notify them on June 23rd that they'll have the site tour 2 days later.
And when it's a short list, you're talking 3 of the.
Yes.
Okay.
3 of the people that bring
Yep.
us offers. Okay. So, how do we choose that? You wanna send out a email to see what board members would be interested in doing it, and get, I mean, you said 3 board members, you said?
Well, it's your rules of if you
Yeah.
have too many together, then you have to call a
Right.
meeting.
So I would send out an email to the board.
Or if you want to do it right now, who's 3 that would be interested or possibly?
Dawn, do you know what we're doing right now?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So 3 board members then to choose a possible CRM. Is that right? CRM, is that right?
CMAR.
See what?
CMAR.
CMAR. Okay. Who all would like to be on that?
Before I commit to doing anything, I want to know, would we be meeting in person to shortlist them, or are we doing it individually? How are we doing this?
I would say you ought to get together and look
That's
through
in
them
the
and,
process.
We have a worksheet, like a scoring worksheet that
To
you
score
can-
them.
To score, that, we have an Excel file that I've shared with Brad.
And then we can discuss after we score them individually.
Well, there's one.
okay. Kelly, Dawn, are you interested?
I'll give you the lesson background, that's the only reason why I'm saying.
He said no.
I'll do it.
What's the time commitment?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
Reviewing 530 to 60 page documents.
Not in person, right?
No.
Right.
Do you review them on your own?
I can do that.
I can do it. 1, 2, 3. Kelly, Jim, and Jerome. Okay? And then you'll figure out the administration piece for you or however that works.
Yep.
Okay.
And so then that next piece would then just be looking at who would be doing the interviews and getting that on, we'll want to get that out to them so they have that on their schedule when the interviews would be.
That July 7th.
Yep, and it would be nice if that could be listed with the short list,
Good times.
the timeframe. If it is gonna be that July 7th, that's where I started with, you can
Okay.
look at a different day that works for
Kelly?
Can you remind me of the 5 firms that we sent?
VHS, McAllen Gordon, Hutton, Universal, and
Lloyd, Kendall, J. Dunn,
Is that the training?
Trinian.
Trinium.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments around this?
What's the turnaround time? It says it's, the qualifications are due like 2 p.m. What's the turnaround time for us to have those reviewed and back?
We would need to send out the short list by June 23rd,
Okay.
so you have a little bit of time to review those and then get together.
Like following Wednesday.
A little bit.
So not really, but we do.
Thank you all for committing to that, appreciate it. Okay, then I'm going to move on, if that's okay with everyone else. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Maria, appreciate it. Property and casualty insurance renewal.
Yeah, Tom, you're on, right?
I'm on.
Just a second here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh, we'll wait on this, I'm sorry.
Oh, Kelly.
Just be 1 second. Thank you, Maria.
We got a little bit of an agenda.
Thanks, Maria.
Okay,
You're on.
You ready for me?
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Sure. I have
Tom McGuire. I'm from CBIT, Kansas City. We work in conjunction with Kansas Association of School Boards to provide the Insurance Kansas Educational Risk Management Pool to members of KASP for their insurance needs. We started this partnership.
You cutting out?
He's on, yeah.
Started the partnership and you cut out. Still nothing.
Can you hear Dawn?
No, can't hear you.
Is
Can you
Dawn,
mute and
can't hear
unmute?
Dawn either, or?
Well, approved.
Yeah, he's
What are
muted.
we gonna
He's,
do about it? I mean,
I just didn't know if it was maybe
Can you guys talk
a
us through
universal
something so you
issue
can
or.
figure out whether it's
see that.
we're gonna go without this year.
Fred, this is Dalton. I was able to hear him.
Can you hear me now?
Yep,
Yes, you can?
yes.
Okay, perfect, sorry. Yeah, we started the partnership with this insurance pool in 2020 when our market right specialty left the state of Kansas and decided they didn't want to insure schools anymore. We had a partnership with them for about 9 years. We wanted to do the pool.
That's the problem.
Yeah, it's the feed.
He's going in.
Yeah.
People
Just-
were rating, I said we just listen to them.
Yeah. Keep going. It's an issue.
Right now, can you hear me better?
No, it's the issue with our going through our TV. So we're okay. Roll.
Okay. So this renewal this year, there is a pretty significant premium increase year over year. Last year in the pool, we paid just under $75,000. This year, the total amount is $96,000, which is a 30% increase. Now, as face value, obviously that's a heavy increase, but very easily explainable in the standpoint that we had been talking with Mr. Starnes for the last couple of years about a property valuation due to the fact that it appeared that our properties were undervalued in terms of the cost we were insuring them for. So the part of the services of the pool is that they did a property value for every new member last year, property valuation by a third party. That third party came in and increased our insurance values for the buildings by 36%, almost 37%. We happen to have an internal valuation group within CBIZ that I ran these numbers by to make sure everything looked good. They confirmed that the numbers looked correct. So our values went up by 36% on the property, which drives most of our premium. But the premium increase was just 30%, so we didn't even get really, that is what is driving the increase, was just getting our values to the proper spot from the insurance standpoint, so that if we, God forbid, did have a catastrophic loss, we would have enough insurance dollars to rebuild any of the buildings that are in the district. That coupled with an increase in the cyber liability is what's really driving the cost. Every district in the state of Kansas this year is seeing rate increases. Pretty much every district across the country is seeing rate increases. Property insurance has been very problematic for the insurance carriers for the last 3 or 4 years, and due to the fact that insurance really is ultimate law of large numbers, even though we're not having losses per se at Wabunsee, we are sharing in that, in the increases that everybody's getting across the country. So that is really, probably 95% of our increase is due to the increase in property values, and then we just saw some modest increases in just the property rate, and namely in the cyber liability. So I would be happy to answer any questions that need to be answered on that.
Well, I guess right out of the gate, I guess I question the property value limit of 41 million. We just got out of a bond discussion where we can build back new for, I guess it's not completely new, is it? A complete catastrophic failure would be $20 million. I mean, we could build back what we need for 20 million versus 41. If that's part of our large increase, I mean.
No, Justin.
I'm not seeing the 41.
Our property values went from 30 million to 41 million. Why?
They went from about
Why do we need $41 million?
29.5 in 2020 to about 38 or 39, well, maybe a little over 39.
What's this 41?
But Justin, on the bond that you're comparing that to,
Yeah.
that wasn't all.
I agree. As I spit it out, that started to make sense.
Yeah.
But valuing our district at 41 million still doesn't make sense to me. But
Probably. I mean, considering.
I have it at about with the building values for 2021 are 34,790.
okay, so what I'm seeing.
709, so just under 35 million for the buildings and an additional 3.7 million for contents. But that averages out to be, like on the high school, about 174 a square foot, which when we ran by our internal people that do this as well, they said that was a reasonable amount.
Some of it's just that we would never rebuild back the way we are, where our footprint is now. We wouldn't rebuild back the way that would be with insurance proceeds. So we're insuring probably way too much blue sky. I would say our risk is less because we're spread out. That 39 million is spread out so far across the district. It's one of our positives right now that is spread out across the district. I question if the insurance company is going to force us to go into those valuations, or if we can save some money because we choose to take on a little more of that personal risk in-house, knowing that we're not insuring our, what you say we should be insuring, but knowing we're taking on the rest of that risk in order to cheapen up our premiums every year.
Yeah, we could definitely potentially look at that. The issue would be if the values of the potential issue would be if the values are not agreed upon from the carrier in the district, they could take apart our blanket, meaning right now we're blanketed across the entire value. So we have, more than enough insurance to rebuild one building should that be damaged. Now, if we decided to go that route, which I'm not even sure that they would do from a carrier standpoint, we can definitely ask. They may strip us of the blanket and we would have just the values at that location. So that can sometimes, depending on how they decide to write the policy, there can potentially be penalties that coincide with that if you're not considered insured to value. However, if you're adamant that those values aren't right, it's something we can check into, but I'm not sure with the way this pool is set up that it's going to be something we're going to be able to do, but I will certainly ask.
And then also the other question that we talked about is raising the deductible, and answer that if you would, please.
Yeah, because of how we are set up, so the district has a $5,000 deductible, and for both wind and hail and for all other perils that aren't wind and hail. The pool then has a layer before the insurance carriers come in of an additional $350,000. So what we have found in that, because we're pushing pushing the insurance carriers further away from the first dollar claims is that movement of the deductibles does not cause much savings in terms of premium dollars. So if we went up to 10,000 or 25,000, which would be the next two stops in terms of where deductibles move, you know, we're probably seeing hundreds of dollars of savings, not thousands. So it just doesn't make financial sense to necessarily take on the risk of the higher deductibles.
And then the other piece with the closing of Paxco Middle School without students next year, would we have to carry as much?
Well, you would, that's a good question. And it depends on what you want to do with that building. You know, obviously there would be liability coverage for that.
Right.
You don't have to necessarily insure it. We would recommend, because if something happened to it, you probably want, I mean, you do still own it, so you would get the value of that if something happened to it. But, you know, you could look into, you know, I know Brad, we talked about that in terms of you definitely don't want it to be vacant. So if you do decide to insure it, you need to, you know, make sure that people are checking in on it and going in and out of it on a regular basis so that it's not considered vacant.
Right.
But, you know, most of the time we see school districts will continue to insure that until they either sell it or get rid of it, however they're, you know, tear it down. But we don't typically see school districts just say, all right, we're out of that building, we're not going to insure it at all.
So under these current amounts, that's just liability only?
No, we have full replacement costs on that building as well. But because there's an insurable interest in it from the property standpoint, we would normally see that property coverage continue.
That probably wouldn't bring it down very much, even if we did go liability on honestly. How much has this increased since the previous year?
22.
No, I mean over the previous, not like just last year, but the year before. How much did it increase from that year to the?
I do not have that number for the year prior to this.
I don't know. We have to look at it, see.
I'm just curious how much it's going to jump year over year. But if we can get a bond to pass, that's going to cut down our square footage. I mean, at least number of locations and the age of some of those locations.
I personally don't believe that the district ought to spend the money on insuring the amount of dollars that they're asking us to insure. That's my personal feelings. I feel like if we are willing to take on that risk as a district, we ought to be allowed to take on that risk and lower our premiums because we're asking them to insure less dollars. If it broke us out of a blanket and we had to place values on Maple Hill, Paxico, and Alma, I guess to me, so be it. Let's place values on those because, again, if one of those buildings completely is obliterated, we're not going to take the same approach as what we have today. We would take those dollars and spend them probably in a more efficient manner. But I'll go with whatever the board wants to go with. I'm just simply stating the insurance company is forcing us to take on more risk or more value so that they have the risk in their pockets, but they're going to take our premiums to do so. I don't believe we need to do that.
I understand where you're coming from. With this being an insurance pool, I'm not sure we're going to have that option, but like I said, I will check and see and report back.
Yeah, the risk could be that you lose a blanket policy and then you end up paying penalties because you're not in the blanket policy anymore.
Which probably wouldn't be a bad idea if
Depending on how
to
much
look
they-
outside of the pool. If somebody's going to give you a 30% price increase, why have we not bid it out someplace else? Pool or no pool? Why are we not looking elsewhere for somebody to give us an idea of what the actual market is? Right now, we're paying for other people's increases across the entire United States that are part of this pool because we haven't had any losses. So
This pool is just for Kansas school districts. The insurance market in general is being spread out no matter the losses are being spread out amongst people across the country, no matter what carrier you're with. We currently have about 90 members in this pool. We know we're price competitive with the market in terms of rates. I understand the frustration on the valuations that you don't agree with. We've had 2 different certified property appraisals say for what your building footprint is right now, these values that the property appraisal took us to this year are appropriate.
Justin.
Yes.
I'm not a property appraiser by any stretch of the imagination, but we did have another one double check just to make sure that these values were correct.
But it's in the insurance company's best interest to increase our value so that we pay more in premiums. They are the people that ask the appraisers to come in and take a look, so.
You can look at it that way, but I would also argue that the insurance carriers, if you look back at what happens at some of our major disasters that have happened, so you look at Joplin, you look at Greensburg, you look at Chapman, that wasn't that far from here. There was claims that have occurred where there hasn't been enough insurance dollars to rebuild the buildings, right? That happened at each of those. And the carriers do have a desire, whether you believe it or not, to, if there's something happened, that they have the dollars to give back to the entity so that they can rebuild their buildings. None of those claims went very well from the insurance carrier standpoint, from a PR perspective. I don't work for the insurance carriers, but they had to answer those questions as to why there was not enough insurance there. So they do have, and this goes for all carriers that we work with. The issue with Kansas right now is that the market for school districts is very, very slim. We have the pool, who we actually entered into last year as part of the pool was a 2-year commitment from all the members of the pool. So we're in that second year now. And the second option is EMC, who bid out against us on the pool last year, and the pool was more price competitive than EMC. EMC is taking rate increases just like the pool is doing. Now, most of our increase this year just happens to be from the valuation. So, unfortunately, that's where we're at this point, but we are in the second year of a 2-year commitment. So there really wasn't an option to go and look at anything else for this year. But happy to bid it out next year if that's what the board wants to do.
Well, I appreciate this information, and it's not, I think, I'm sorry, Tom, is that right? Is that your name? Okay.
Tom.
I think he alluded to that it's, these price increases are across several entities. I know that in higher ed, similar conversation, prices have skyrocketed this year for property insurance and looking at different options and things like that. So I'm just saying, don't think that this is just us. I'm not saying it's okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's just us. I'm
it's-
just saying we ought to have more control over valuations. It's our property, not theirs, so
Right, but
that's it.
it includes, the policy includes more than just property, includes cyber liability insurance as well, as part of that. That's not.
Are there limits on cyber liability? Can you speak to cyber liability for me?
Yeah, in terms of what is covered.
Yeah.
Yes, the cyber liability started with, the quintessential cyber liability coverage would have been, the credit monitoring and things of that nature. And that's how that's kind of started. We've kind of evolved right now where we're seeing most of the claims. And out of our 40 districts, we've probably had 18 that have been hit with a cyber claim over the past 18 months to 2 years. So we're seeing a high prevalence. On that is the ransomware, so the ransom attacks that we hear about in the news every day. The social engineering or deception fraud, where the hackers are, kind of duping us out of money, and we've had that happen at a number of school districts as well. We had a school district claim where The W-2s of all of the employees got released during tax season. So those are the type of things that the cyber liability is covering.
Is there a limit on that?
There's a $2 million limit on that within our current policy.
Jeez. What are we paying for?
Is there, what kind of regulatory standards do we have to adhere to, just that we have all our buildings insured? Is there de minimis? Like, does the regulation speak to that?
I couldn't hear you very well, I'm sorry.
In terms of like a regulatory aspect, like, are we required by Kansas law to have a de minimis amount or percentage of appraisal or something for any of our buildings, or what's? Go ahead.
Well, not necessarily not that I know of by the state. Usually the insurance carriers are helping to set those. They don't set the limits, but they have verbiage within the policy that they require you to be insured to a certain value, percentage of what the value is. So the property appraisals have become a pretty standard item for insurance carriers to be requiring of their insureds to get third-party property appraisals, at least in the municipal space.
Were these property appraisals done recently, like in the last 4 months?
Probably in the last, I couldn't tell you if it was in the last 4 months within the last renewal, so since last July. I think they were done in the fall.
Is this still an action item?
Yeah.
I noticed we still have the tower listed on here. Do we need to have that insured if we don't own it anymore?
I hope not.
If you don't own it, we can definitely take it off.
Except your premium's gonna go up $500.
Nobody likes insurance.
No, I don't, and I agree with your 2-year term. I knew that last year when we went into this. It just feels, I guess it's an interesting observation that they brought us in with a slight decrease or break even last year, and bam, hey, we've got you, you have to sign up another year because your 2-year contract and we're gonna up you 30%. Feels like maybe that's not the appropriate response from our insurance carriers. And I hope that the board next year does take a different look at what we're doing, because I don't like it.
You offer more than 2-year term contracts, or is that?
It's not a contract, obviously. They lock you in, and then they're allowed to price gouge you as far as they want to and force you to renew, is the way this more acts, not a contract.
Right.
Just not a question.
There's an initial 2-year commitment to the pool, and then you are free. It's just a year-to-year after that.
Steve?
We had an appraisal done at Tax Covenant School recently. How would it compare to their appraisal?
Yeah, I don't know. Because we don't have access to these
Well,
appraisals,
We're
correct?
talking about replacement cost value versus market value.
Yes, you have access to the appraisals.
Good.
And we're not, I mean, it's the whole contents. of
Your
it.
replacement cost value is probably gonna be more than your market value, because we couldn't sell it for that.
Gotcha.
Any other questions on insurance? So if not, it is
Just
an
make
action.
sure that we take that tower off of there. There's no sense in paying for it.
We will definitely get the tower off of there.
Can he, I guess when does it have to be an action item in terms of for the purposes of, can you do this at the next?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, if he can look into separating and taking it off of one year, that's all.
Gotcha.
It's a July 1 date, isn't it?
Tom, when does it have to be acted upon the latest? Can it be at the July meeting?
As far as the board passing it,
Correct.
that's fine.
The only reason we asked is because there was some communication about it's possible that we could to readjust our valuations, or it may not be possible, and I don't know is that we're ready to commit. If we do have the ability to change valuations, we would like to know what that process is. If not, then we're stuck with where we're at.
I will ask the questions, first thing in the morning and report back.
Okay. So then,
Move to table this to the July meeting.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. All those in opposed, please say aye. Motion carried. This is tabled till next meeting. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate all your information.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, moving on then to the 2020 Hazard Mitigation Plan adoption, Red.
The Buncombe County Emergency Management asked us to adopt this mitigation plan, allows them to access federal funds, so, and state funds as well, so recommend that we approve it.
Okay. I move, is there a second? Callie, seconded. All those opposed, please say aye. Motion carried. Information then about the crosswalks.
Just that Jan had the SRO Leo look at the crosswalk, didn't see any issues, and didn't see the problem. So did talk to the city, and they made reference, they being Jim Culligan, about then doing some things in regards to the other street here with the flashing solar type of things and those kind of things. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other communication around that? All right, the USD 329 vision statement.
As a part of our multi-tiered systems of support, the MTSS, we were charged to have the staff and administration develop a vision statement and then a vision statement. And those are listed as in your packets. Vision, USD 329, small district, big opportunities to learn and lead. Hashtag One Wabunsee. The mission statement of how to do that is that the school district is to academically prepare all students with a foundation of social, emotional, and mental health wellness, while also becoming responsible, self-directed learners and inspired leaders.
Great. Any communication around that?
Looks great.
Thank you, Fred. I love
Good.
it.
Good.
All right.
I move for approval.
Kelly, is there a second?
I'll second it.
And Kelly. All those opposed, please say aye. Motion carried. KASB policy updates and handbooks.
The information, again, is in your packet about the specific changes into policies, and that would be at the July meeting for approval. And just wanted to give you an opportunity to look those over, as well as Cheryl's provided the principals have updated their handbooks, and everyone should have a copy of the handbooks to look at.
Done.
Yeah, like one is late.
Okay. Any other communication around that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, it was supposed to be informational. I thought it said it was supposed to be approved at July meeting.
Yeah.
So we probably ought to table it then until next meeting, since it's listed as an action item.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, I so move to table the policy updates and handbooks till our July meeting.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those opposed, please say aye. Motion carried. All right, moving on then to personnel. Negotiations, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
10 minutes.
Okay. I move we go into an executive session to discuss the latest proposal for increasing the base pay rate from teachers pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under COMA, and the open meeting will resume in the board meeting at 8:15. Is there a second? Jerome seconded. All those opposed, please say aye. Motion carried. We'll have to stay here because Dawn's on Zoom. Okay, I move we go into executive session to discuss an individual employee's performance pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under COMA, and the opening meeting will resume in the boardroom at
8:30?
8:30. Is there a
Is everyone
second?
included?
Yes, I would like to, I'm sorry.
Include Mrs. Hutley.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those opposed, please say aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on then to employment. I move we approve the employment list as submitted, which goes, how do you pronounce your last name, Sylvie? Supposi. Kaylee Supposi as a Maple Hill Library Media Tech. Chloe Reese, junior high math and junior high head volleyball coach. Michelle Garrett, transportation secretary, district office administrative assistant. Maddie Hutley, summer paint crew. Megan Straight, summer paint crew. Krista Talley, junior high library media tech. Brandy Miller, junior high head girls basketball coach. Chris Smart, high school head volleyball coach. Jamie Dunbar, high school and junior high head wrestling coach. Hillary Lowry, elementary physical ed teacher, junior high assistant volleyball coach and junior high head track coach. Lance Fuller, high school head baseball coach. Dustin Sievers, substitute mowing. Diane Briner as high school FACS and FCCLA teacher. High school assistant coaches for volleyball, Karen Wright and Kara Miller. Football, Garrett Eck. Tennis, Brandy Miller. Cross country, Alicia Stock.
And then the others that were submitted.
And then Lance Fuller as junior high assistant football coach. Mitchell Wertzberger as a high school football assistant coach. Jordan Dunn as high school head cheer coach. And Miriam Barton as high school assistant cheer coach. Then I also moved to accept the resignations and retirements. One of Emily Henderson, the Grant School Mental Health Liaison. Jaron Weisar as the high school head baseball coach. Keely Reddick as the high school FACS and cheer coach. David Amir as high school baseball coach. Cody Gilmore as high school football coach, classified sub and bus driver. Terry Padilla as the high school cook, or elementary cook, sorry. Also, transfer of duties, Jessica Imthern from the junior high secretary to the high school assistant athletic secretary. Jaron Weisar to 7 through 12 athletic director. Cheryl Lewis from high school cheer sponsor to junior high cheer sponsor. And David Amir, 2 hours of Spanish and transfer to school health, mental health liaison. Is there a second?
I second.
Kelly seconds. All those opposed, please say aye. Motion carried. Superintendent forum.
Just included in your packet is the COVID end of the year data spreadsheet. We had students that were quarantined, that were 201, staff 41, positive cases of COVID, students 17 and staff 8. And again, great job by all of our people and working with the health department to make sure that those numbers were contained. The Kansas State assessment data is being reviewed. It does look very well. So to this point, we had one class that had 91%. Levels 3 and 4 are basically B and A on the state assessments. And we had one student score a perfect test score. Board members reminded to turn in your mileage reimbursements for the policy BBBE. Just FYI, Maple Hill is had a water park discussion about the possibility of looking into grant money to approach both the city and the school, since we own the ground, about putting in a water splash park on the property south of Maple Hill Elementary. More information will be coming about that. The grant, just FYI, for the mental health piece, it includes in our vision and mission statements. Last year, the year before, we had 63 students, and this past year, we had 122 students seen by our mental health team, and 41 of those students went on and received therapeutic help from CrossWinds. So we're seeing a huge increase so if you think of those 122, that's basically a quarter of our student population, which is good in the sense that students have issues and we're able to help them with those. And the more they find people are going to help them, the more we're going to see more coming. So thank you for your support and willingness to allow us to do that. The board elections, just FYI, Justin's position was left open. KSB Legal explained what would happen, and been in contact with Abby Amick about that as far as the election officer and how that would work. And then it would be a write-in as long as they were in the district and it was legible and those kind of things. And if that didn't happen, then the board could have 6 and appoint another one if they chose to. And would recommend that if that happens, that we would choose someone so that we would have the ability to have 4 versus a 3-3 tie on scenarios. And then Tony refiled, and then 3, including Jerome, are running for his position. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Kelly?
I just had one question. So on employment, do we have all of our teaching positions filled for fall now?
We do.
Yay, great. Okay.
Yes.
I've lost track.
Yeah, I know.
After
So did
the
we.
After the last several months.
I
so.
didn't.
I only had a couple to do, so, okay. I think that was something I wanted to ask.
Kelly?
I'm good.
Jim?
We talked about it before, but the bus transportation software we're looking into, is there a timeline for when we might be able to?
Now, Michelle Garrett, our new, that was just hired, has been in training with Roberta. Roberta is, quote, officially done July 1st, correct, Cheryl?
June 30th.
Oh, June 30th, okay, I'm sorry. But anyway, I've given her a charge that after she gets going to, hey, this is what we're gonna look at, see what could be.
Nothing? Dawn, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Hey, I'll end. I wanted to give everybody an update on the Muncie High School shooting team. So we ended up with 11 kids, and out of a league of 8, we finished 4th in that league. And we actually had one shooter, Hunter McCullough, who actually placed in the top 3 of over 80 kids. Our state is this weekend at Sedgwick, Kansas. So we're taking 8 kids down to state, and we're really excited for it. It's been a blast. I was the coach, and actually I had more fun than the kids did by a stretch. So anyway, thank you for approving that, because it's been a great addition to our school.
Awesome.
That's it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Kelly? Second. Jerome seconded. All those opposed, please say aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Bye, Dawn.
Good evening.